I will be serving in the role of chair this evening. And the chair of the zoning board, Joanne Petito, will be serving as a voting member. This change is being made at her request. As the acting chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. On October 9th, 2020, public notice of this meeting was posted on the town website and on the bulletin board of the town offices at number 10 Front Street. As provided in that public notice, the public may access the meeting online and via phone. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Let's start by the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member is called, please state your name. Please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting and who that person is, their affiliation, their son, daughter, spouse, etc. And I'll add that this is required under the New Hampshire law. So first of all, my name is Robert Pryor. I'm here. And I am alone in this room with the exception of a very small dog that just laid down on my feet. Now I'm going to start with my window here, and I'm going to call the people in the order in which they appear on my screen. Martha Pennell.
I'm Martha Pennell, and I'm here by myself.
Thank you, Martha. Ann Sermon.
Yes, I'm Ann Sermon, and I'm here by myself, except for the 3 canines mentioned previously.
All right, you're out canining me. Esther Olson Murphy.
I'm Esther Olson Murphy, and I'm here by myself.
Thank you, Kevin Baum.
Kevin Baum, I am also here by myself.
Joanne Petito.
Joanne Petito, and I am here by myself.
And finally, Rick Thielbar.
I'm Rick Thielbar, and I'm here by myself.
All these lonely people. So let me look at our agenda and see what's left. So the first item of business is to announce that 2 of the applications that we were due to hear this evening are going to be deferred until the next month's meeting. And so we're going to have to go through on each of those, make a motion, a second, and vote to defer those cases until the next month. So the first is the application of Ioka Properties LLC, which is case number 20-16. May I have a motion to move that to November, please?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of deferring this till next month, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Well, no, can't do it that way. Got to do roll call. Sorry. Martha Pennell?
Aye.
Ann Sermon?
Aye.
Esther Olson Murphy?
Aye.
Joanne Petito?
Aye.
Kevin Baum?
Aye.
And Rick Thielbar.
Aye.
The second is the application of Benjamin and Sarah Anderson. This is case number 20-2. May I have a motion to defer this case until the November meeting?
I so move.
Moved by Mr. Thielbar. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Martha Pennell?
Aye.
Ann Sermon?
Aye.
Esther Olson Murphy?
Aye.
Joanne Petito?
Aye.
Kevin Baum?
Aye.
And Rick Thielbar.
Aye.
Overkill. We got 7 votes on each one. We only needed 5. So the first item of business this evening is the application of Janet E. Rooney for a special exception for Article 4, Section 4.2, Schedule 1, permitted uses, note number 1, and Article 5.2, permit an existing in-law unit to be converted to a permitted residential dwelling unit. Subject property is located at number 11 Hale Street in the R2 district. This is tax map parcel 2-120, case number 20-14. I would ask that anyone attending the meeting mute themselves, please, except for the person who's chosen to speak, so we don't have a lot of background noise. And it makes for a cleaner meeting if we do that. So is the applicant with us? Ms. Rooney?
I'm here.
Would you please tell us about your case? You have the floor.
Okay. Well, I'm here to make my unit a legal unit. It was considered, I guess, an in-law apartment. And I was told that because of the new law that was passed, that I could rent it to, as long as I lived in the house, I could rent it to a friend or anyone.
Okay. I just realized that I skipped an important step, so I'm going to put you on hold for a second, Ms. Rooney.
Okay.
The 7 of us need to decide who is voting on this case.
Okay.
So the full-time members are myself, Joanne, Kevin, and Rick. And of the 3, Martha, Ann, and Esther, is there one of you who would like to join in this case and be a voting member?
I can be.
Okay, Esther's volunteered for that. So those will be the 5 people voting. Ann and Martha, you're welcome to participate in the discussion and in the questioning, but Esther will be casting the vote. So, Ms. Rooney, I have a question for you. Can you give us the approximate size of the unit that you would be renting?
Approximately, probably 700 square feet.
Okay. And do you plan any exterior modifications to the building?
No.
None whatsoever.
No.
Okay. And you indicate in here that you do have sufficient parking for an additional 1-bedroom unit?
Yes. Oh, there's plenty of parking, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant? No hands being raised, virtually or on screen? Mr. Baum.
I do have a question about the parking. I'm just looking. It looks like there's a driveway with space for 2 cars to park side by side. Is that correct?
That's correct. There could be 3, but I've kept it to 2. The woman who's living there now has just 1 vehicle and I have 1 vehicle. And it's such a small unit that I can't foresee anybody else having another car, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It also looks as though you could actually fit 4 cars in there, one behind the other.
Right.
It's
Right.
fairly deep as well as 2 cars.
It's very well, and I could go farther into the yard. It's a huge yard, but it's been that way for so long. It's worked out fine.
Okay. Are there any further questions for the applicant? Joanne?
Yes, is this a 1-bedroom unit or studio unit?
It's more like a studio. The woman's been there for 5 years now. She's a friend of, my friend's daughter. She puts up a screen. It's a big room. It's a huge room. So she puts up a screen and she has her bedroom, and it does have a closet on the one end, and then the other end is her living room.
Okay. And it's going to stay like that on the interior?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's been that way a long time.
Mr. Eastman?
Yes, I'd just like to make a point of clarification here that basically we are treating this as a conversion from an existing legal, like in-law apartment to a legal rental. So we are basically converting that. So we will be treating this as a conversion. So you will be going under that criteria for the special exception for a conversion for an additional unit.
Is that appropriately called out in the
Yes, it says that it's going to be converted.
in the agenda? It says that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Baum?
I'm just curious. There's a question for Doug. Is the reason for doing that is because does the size not meet the ADU standards, or?
No, the ADU size is fine. I just think that I guess we advertised it to convert it to, so the term convert the in-law to a rental unit is in there. I think we should treat it. There's no change in anything. It's the same. It's going to be owner occupied. So it meets the 4,500 square feet per unit. It's 4,500 square feet for the lot size. She meets that. So all the criteria for the conversion is met.
Mr. Eastman, is there any difference to the applicant in that, in terms of tax or in terms of resale value?
No.
Okay. Ms. Sermon, you had your hand up?
Sorry about that. I did, and I wasn't sure if it was if by allowing it, is it then allowed to be increased in size at any given time down the road, or is it the footprint is what the footprint is? That was just my other question. The 700 square feet. That's.
If it's a conversion, it's irrelevant.
It doesn't. Okay. Remember, I'm the newbie. I always ask the funny questions. Thank you.
That's all right. And because of the applicant has presented that she's not going to change the exterior of the building, the division inside is sort of immaterial, I guess, at this stage. Are there any further questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I will open the case up to the public and ask if there are any members of the public who would like to speak regarding this application. Just want to check with IT, Exeter TV. Do we have anyone in the queue, or are we good?
There's currently no members of the public attending.
Very good. I will close this in the public session, move to deliberations. We've already asked if anyone has any additional questions for the applicant. It appears that we're all set on that regard. There's no members of the public. So we get to make a decision here. Are there any discussion? Mr. Eastman, your hand's still raised. Is that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that an artifact of before? Okay, got it.
That better? Sorry.
Okay, this seems to be a fairly uncontroversial case, so I would take a motion. Ms. Petito.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the application of Janet E. Rooney for a special exception for Article 4, Section 4.2, Schedule 1, permitted uses, note number 1, and Article 5.2, to permit an existing in-law unit to be converted to a permitted residential dwelling unit, as stated in the application.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Mr. Baum has moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. The voting members are Esther Olson-Murphy?
Yes.
Aye. Joanne Petito?
Aye.
Kevin Baum?
Aye.
Rick Thielbar?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, so it's 5-0. Ms. Rooney, you can rent your apartment.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Okay. Well done, y'all. The next item on the agenda is the application of Thomas and Rebecca Bergeron for a variance from Article 4, Section 4.3, Schedule 2, Density and Dimensional Regulations Residential, to permit the proposed construction of a 17-foot 9-inch by 20-foot carport encroaching within the required side yard setback. Subject property is located at number 44 Washington Street in the R2 single-family residential zoning district. This is tax map parcel number 74-144, case number 20-15. With regards to the voting members, I've been acquainted with the Bergerons for close to 20 years, and I think it might be best if I recuse myself from this case. I will still run the meeting, but I don't think I should be voting on it. So either Ms. Sermon, would you like to step in and be a voting member?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Okay. So the voting members on this case will be Ms. Sermon, Mr. Baum, Ms. Petito, and Mr. Thielbar. Is that 5? 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we're good. We have 5 voting members. and Ms. Pennell and I will be interested observers. So, will the Bergerons like to present their case?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Pryor. Just so you know who's here, I'm Thomas. My wife, Rebecca, go by Tom. I'm also at my father's house. We're in Raymond. So my father's in the room. You did ask that earlier.
Thank you.
And Brian Fraser is also on the call. He also says Thomas Bergeron in the name. He's our builder. And I asked him to join us in case any questions come up.
Very good. Thank you. I think the gentleman who's the builder should mute yourself if you don't mind. Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Right. So we live in, as you said, 44 Washington Street in Exeter. It's a small lot in town. It's about an eighth of an acre. As you mentioned, Bob, we lived in town for about 20 years. And we'd like to add a carport to our two-car garage, driveway that we've had for the 20 years. Basically, in the winter with snow, frost, etc. Rebecca's a teacher and getting up early mornings, so to be able to clear the car and not have to worry about scraping frost, etc. We did look at potentially a garage, and we felt the carport would probably be more in keeping with the neighborhood as a covering and still give us full access out to the to view the traffic coming. And I think for us going for the variances, we are coming within 2 feet of the property line as opposed to the 10 feet. But as we said, it's a small lot with 50 feet of frontage. The house on one end is a few feet off the property line, so the only option really is to put the carport where the driveway is. There's really not another location on the property to be able to get any coverage from there. So with that, we put together the application. We don't feel there'll be any effects on the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, it fits in very well with the overall neighborhood and the aesthetics of it. There's other properties in our street that are very close to the property line as well. Mm-hmm. And also, we think it's important is there's a large open space between our house, between where the carport would be and the neighbor, Leah Harrington. There's probably close to 70 feet, well over 50 feet between where the carport and end and where her house is. Something to add?
Nope.
No. So that's kind of our thought on adding the carport.
Okay, thank you. Just a clarification, the large space between you and the neighbor is not a separate lot.
Correct. That is her property. Yeah.
That's her property. Okay. And it's not large enough to be subdivided, so it's not like they're going to throw another house in there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we can close to matching subdivision requirements.
Okay.
If I could, I just wanted to, a similar line of questioning just to confirm, because I looked on Google Maps, I think the wrong house shows. So I just wanted to make sure that I had it correctly. Your house is, if you are looking at it from Washington Street, your driveway is to the right, and then your neighbor to the right also has their yard in between your driveway and the house, correct?
Correct. And she has a driveway close to her house. So there's a large lawn, a driveway, and then her house.
Okay. I think 44 shows up on the house to your left on Google. So I wanted to make sure that I was clear and that no one else was confused.
Okay. Yeah. There's a small house looking at it to the left, which is probably 10 feet away from where we are.
With a lot less space in between. So
correct.
Thank you.
Any other further questions? Mr. Thielbar? Rick, you're muted.
My wife's been trying to get one of those for me for a long time. So the house next door is 54. Is that the right street number?
I believe so. Let me check that. Correct. Leah Harrington, 54.
Okay.
Washington.
So just as a general statement, just 2 foot clearance to the property line is a big ask. Do you think you could get a formal approval from the neighbor that they wouldn't mind that?
I'm sure we could. We've had several conversations with her, and she's completely fine. She was aware of this meeting, and so I would be surprised if she wasn't willing to let you know that she has she's has no concern.
Bob, do you think we could actually give approval with the condition that we have the neighbor's formal approval?
Yeah, I think
that's reasonable.
I think that's reasonable. I guess timing would be my question on that. If we got a letter from her in a day or two, would that mean approval at that time, or would we have to wait for the next board meeting?
Actually, I don't believe it's at all necessary because the case has been properly notified. The abutter has been noticed, and the abutter has the opportunity to speak for or against the case. I don't believe that any such condition would be wise or would be necessary. Mr. Baum?
Yeah, I would like to second that. I agree. I wouldn't feel comfortable asking for the neighbor, allowing a neighbor to essentially be able to approve or deny. So I think that would be a bad precedent, and I question whether we could do that. I mean, it's certainly the neighbor's concern is always a factor, but it is not one of the criteria that we consider. So I would not be comfortable with putting that condition on.
I would agree. I would agree with that. The abutter was legally notified, and if they had concerns, then they would be here. So.
Agreed. As a variance, I am going to suggest that we go through the criteria, though, just to dot I's and cross T's. So I think everything will be fine.
Joanna has a question.
Ms. Petito?
Thank you. I don't see an abutter list on here. Is there an abutter list? Are we sure that the abutters were notified? It could be that the list is just missing from my packet.
As it was from the previous application as well.
I didn't have a list.
He hand wrote them, I think, on the previous.
Yeah.
You have it right there.
Supply the abutters list.
I have it right here.
Certified letter, and we submitted all the addresses and the extra $50 fee. So.
All right, let's hang on a second. Let Mr. Reisman answer the question.
Yes, they were notified. I have it right here.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Joanne?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Ms. Pennell?
If you construct this carport, am I correct in thinking that this would not allow you to access the rear of your house with a truck or anything like a fire engine? Or in other words, this would block any truck from getting to the rear of your property. Am I correct?
Yeah. Okay.
So we have the house and a shed. So a truck, if it had to get to the back, which is what has happened, our neighbor 54, the truck would go, if there, God forbid anything should happen, they would go around the property and but as it is now, a truck can't get to the backyard.
But with the carport, it
couldn't right now either without moving the shed.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a shed there.
It's a small shed.
Yeah. And we would leave the back of the carport open, so a small vehicle would be able to drive through under it, but obviously a large fire truck wouldn't be able to.
Couldn't get back there now, though, so.
Well, there's plenty of room to drive in the neighbor's yard.
Yeah, that's how we've had trees taken down.
Thank you. Ms. Petito, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'm looking at the diagram, and it looks like, is this a carport sufficient to cover 2 vehicles?
Correct. It's 17 feet, 10 inches, which would be enough.
Okay, and the shed is behind the right vehicle on the right, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So a truck could fit between the shed and the house right now. Or is there something else there? Because I see
we do have a deck as well.
The deck with the stairs, I don't know if you can see that with the.
Oh, is that blocked by the car that's parked in front so you can't?
Yeah. Which I think is on the plan view on one of the.
Okay. So
Joanne, if you look at this view, you can see that there's stairs and a deck out the back that stick out to the side of the house.
Oh, yes, I see it. I do see that. Yeah. Now, if you were to have a carport that was the width of for only one car, would that fit within the setback?
I believe in that case it would fall into the 10-foot setback.
Setback, I think, is 15.
Yeah, I thought that the setback unless sometimes there are amendments that I know I've overlooked on here, but from what I see in Schedule 2 of 4.3, it looks like it's 15. Is it, am I wrong?
That's what I have.
10?
It's 10.
Where?
It's a non-conforming lot. They don't have the 100 feet of frontage.
Okay, so it's 10.
That's correct.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for the applicant? Ms. Pennell?
Is the carport that you've presented in the application, it's open on three sides. Is that going to be the way it's going to be built? Carports tend to get sides to them.
So we had originally thought years back that we would do a garage, and because of the limitation of the lot and wanting to be able to get out and see the traffic coming and going, neighborhood, families. So we have no intention of closing it in, because then it would be difficult to see the traffic.
So the carport is going to be built as illustrated, just open on three sides.
Exactly.
Correct, yeah.
Actually open on all four sides, correct?
The house would be the
house is on the fourth side, isn't it?
It's attached. Good point. GP, thank you. Missed that one.
I have a question for Doug, actually, along those lines. If this was later enclosed by a different owner, would that require further relief?
No, but I'm glad you did bring that up. The only thing that would, if it were enclosed and there were windows on the existing house, those windows would not be able to remain. There can be no connection of a window into a garage that's finished or with exterior walls. So, but it wouldn't change the footprint of the building. It would only have to be, it would change the code compliancy, but it would not change the footprint or anything to do with the zoning end of it. It would be a building code matter.
Okay.
And not a zoning issue.
Not a zoning issue.
Correct.
Thanks, Doug. Martha?
Brian knows that, right, Brian?
Martha?
Doug, are you saying then that a future owner could put a wall up on two sides, the rear and the right side, without any permit or anything?
Well, they would need a permit.
Or a building permit, yes, but...
Well, they're going to need a building permit to do the carport, which they know. And then if they did decide to enclose the three walls and put a garage door on.
No, I'm not. I'm saying leave the garage door off.
Even if it were enclosed on two sides, the side and the rear, they would still have to get a building permit. And then they would have to make it code compliant so that wall that is on the existing house has a fire rating.
But other than that,
it doesn't change anything as far as setbacks or any of that. It's just a building code issue.
Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Sermon?
So we sort of saying that if somebody wanted, another owner wanted to make it a garage, an actual garage.
Correct.
Would they then still have to come back for more relief or not?
No.
Again, it would only strictly be building code that they would have to worry about, not
follow
zoning.
that correctly.
Correct.
Right. So we are essentially approving a full garage.
Yes.
We've gone through this before.
Thank you.
It's been a few years, but we've discussed carports before.
Correct.
That was when we built, right?
Any further questions for the applicant? He almost got away with it. Joanne?
I have just one question. If this carport, if you did have a carport to cover only one car, would it be feasible to park your additional car next to it, or?
No, that's one thing we looked at. Actually, Brian helped us kind of go through that. And especially with the deck and the staircase, the second car would be out into the sidewalk.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the concerns. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I realize there are no attendees, but pro forma, I'm going to open this up to the public and see if there's anybody out in cyberspace who would like to speak to this application. All right, I will pause. Dan, it looks like we have no attendees. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Very good. We will close the public session. Nice quiet meeting this evening, kids. And move to deliberations. So, have at it. I do want us to go through the variance criteria. I think it's important that we do that, so I'll ask somebody to walk us through that. Mr. Baum.
I'm comfortable with this. I think it's a reasonable request given the area. If you look in the neighborhood, a lot of these houses are within. It looks like they're within the setbacks on one side at least. This is a little different because this is just such a small lot that was, that was stuck in here, but it's there, and I don't see any real impact given the existence of the lawn to the right. Certainly, if we were increasing on the other side, or if there was a house as close, it would be more of a concern. With respect to the carport versus the garage, I'm comfortable with that as well. I actually would, aesthetically, I'd prefer a garage over a carport, but that's not what's being asked tonight. So I don't have any concerns about a later conversion, and certainly they'd have to meet all the code requirements.
Right. Anyone else? Well, since I'm not a voting member, why don't I go through the variance criteria, because chairs aren't supposed to do that, but it's all right.
Well, Bob, I'm happy to as well, since you've recused.
Oh, okay, fine. Why don't you go ahead, Kevin? Thank you. I appreciate it.
If no one has any comments. Okay. First two criteria, that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest and the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Those are generally considered together. As the applicants note, there are many existing houses in the neighborhood that don't meet this current requirement. It's consistent with the neighborhood. One of the things that the courts look at is whether it will impact the public health, safety, and welfare. I think given the fact that it is consistent with the rest of this neighborhood, which is a fairly tight neighborhood. I think this is consistent. Substantial justice is done. Basically, as we know, that's a weighing impact to the owners and the applicants versus detriment to the public or benefit to the public. In this case, I think it weighs in favor of the applicant to be able to have a carport to protect their cars in the winter. I mean, we live in New England, we live in New Hampshire. Having a car having a covering on your car, I think though we don't all have it, is more than just a luxury. And I think it's reasonable, and I don't think anyone, members of the public, are harmed by it. The values of surrounding properties not diminished. I agree with that. I think that's met as well. It is consistent with the neighborhood. It appears it's going to be tastefully done. It shouldn't have any impact on any of the surrounding properties. and having the garage will increase the value of this property, which should help the surrounding properties as well. And then literal enforcement would result in a hardship. This is this is a small lot that is squeezed in there. It's difficult to do anything. I'd say it's probably impossible to do anything on this lot without going into the setbacks. I think this is a reasonable request. Again, if we only allowed enough for one car, that might somewhat reduce the setback impacts. But I don't think the neighbor that's impacted would see any difference really, and it would make the use of that carport far less valuable. It's just to be able to put two cars in, and they're asking for a little under 9 feet, I think, per car, which is pretty standard. Allows a reasonable amount of room for the cars to go in, open the doors, without, I think, at an over ask for additional storage. And I guess that with that, I will.
You're on a roll. Keep going.
I think it meets the requirements.
Keep going. You're on a roll. Do you want to make a motion, Kevin, while you're at it, or do you want just keep going that we can discuss?
Sure. I think Martha had her hand up, but let me make a motion while I'm unmuted, and then folks can comment. So I will move to approve the request for a variance from Article 4, Section 4.3, Schedule 2, to permit the proposed construction of a 17-foot by 9-inch by 20-foot carport within the side yard setback.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Sermon. Discussion. Martha?
I'm not voting on this, so can I just make a comment or?
Absolutely.
My only concern is, are we in any way affecting the rights of the neighbor to the right that has the open space? I mean, we've commented that because the neighbor has an large open space, we've used that. Are we in any way restricting her use of that space? Supposing she wanted to put a shed or something 10 feet from her property line, or 15 or whatever, are we hurting her rights or anything?
So let me try to ask the same question differently. If these folks are 2 feet from the property line, can not their neighbor put a second structure 2 feet from their property line? Because we've set a precedent in a non-conforming lot for just 2 feet clearance.
I'll defer to Doug on some of this, but let me answer a little bit from my experience, which is that I don't think we're setting a precedent here, because in neighborhoods such as this one, there are many, many, many examples of structures, whether it's a primary dwelling or a second structure or a garage, that are well within the legal setbacks, whether it's 2 feet or less. We had a property a few years ago that was essentially it was part of a garage had to be moved because it was over on somebody else's property line. So this is not uncommon. I do not have a concern, Martha and Rick, that we are in any way limiting the rights of the abutter by doing this, but I'll defer to Doug. Doug, do you have a comment on this at all?
Only that the neighbor's lot is a conforming lot, and I believe is a conforming lot. It's a rather large lot. It's something we call a double lot.
Okay.
Washington Street was originally done with, was originally a subdivision with 50-foot wide house lots. And that's why theirs is so narrow, is because that lot was bought years ago and was developed. The other lot to the right was basically a double lot. So she is more restricted. Certainly she could put a 10 by 12 shed on the property, right on the property line. So she could use it for that. So I don't see any anything happening. I believe, like Kevin said, we're going through the criteria that I believe, other garages and barns and sheds on that street are very close to property line. So it's not unusual. Once again, if the applicant's neighbor was concerned about it or had future plans, I would say that she would have been here and explaining that. So that's what we have to base our decisions on what's before us right now.
Right, but our decision is forever, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the neighbor. However, if the neighbor sells their property, the structure will be there, so they shouldn't have any real complaint.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Caveat emptor.
You're absolutely right, Rick.
I mean, I find it significant that the neighbor isn't here and hasn't raised any objection, and the applicant has told us that the neighbor is aware of this and doesn't have a problem with it, to the effect that it may, when they go to sell their house, they'll have a structure right next to the property line. If that makes it harder to sell or reduces some value, I don't know, but that's something I'm sure they have notice of, and they've agreed to it and haven't raised any objection to it. So I find that significant. And just one other thing, I'm sorry, as far as having a smaller carport, Kevin, I think you mentioned this. I think the applicant said that if they did have a carport for just one car that was within the setback, they couldn't get both of their cars in the driveway. So I think that's significant. The only way it seems to have a covering is to have it so that it could fit both cars. Otherwise, it sounds like they can't use their driveway for their cars. So that's all.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. We have a motion that's been moved and made and seconded. And the voting members are Ann Sermon.
Aye.
Kevin Baum.
Aye.
Joanne Petito.
Aye.
Rick Thielbar.
Hey,
1, 2, 3, 4. Who's
One
the
more.
fifth? Martha or Esther?
What?
Martha, I believe you're the fifth voting member.
Nay.
Nay. So we have 4-1. The motion passes.
actually you have 3-2.
3-2. Nick?
Yeah,
Rick, did you say nay? I
Yes, I did.
apologize.
Oh,
I apologize. I did not hear that.
But that still passes.
But it still passes 3-2. Okay. Thank you very much, Bergerons.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just interesting enough, the discussion, our neighbor does further up in the property, does have the shed kind of on the property line. We use it as our fence, so there's a gap in the fence and stuff, so. So, thank you, appreciate
Thank
your
you.
deliberation tonight.
Okay. Oh, that was interesting. I didn't even hear that 3-2. I didn't hear your nay, Rick. I apologize.
I'll have to
Okay.
speak more loudly.
You yell. I'll go stand outside. I can hear you yell. The last thing that we have on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the September 15th meeting. And I think we are all aware that the version that we were sent in our packets is inaccurate in that there's several pages missing. And so I don't know if everybody received the one that was sent by Barb through email and has had a chance to look at it. The people who were at the meeting and would be voting this evening would be myself, Rick,
Yes,
Sir, and Ann. You've got them all right, Rick?
I did. And I have no corrections.
Well, you're usually good at finding things, so I'm impressed. Ms. Sermon, did you have any questions about the meetings, minutes of the September 15th meeting? You're muted. All right.
Sorry about that. No, they seemed very thorough, actually. I read them completely.
Esther, okay with you?
It looks good to me, as usual.
As usual, we have a great clerk there. So would a motion to accept the minutes of the September 15th, 2020 meeting, please?
I so move.
So moved by Mr. Thielbar, seconded.
I'll second.
Sermon, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, I can't do that anymore. Ms. Sermon,
Aye.
Mr. Thielbar,
Aye.
Ms. Olson Murphy,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. Unless there's something else, some other business, I believe we've concluded the business of the zoning board for the month of October.
Joanne, it was good to see you.
It's good to be back. I missed it.
Fully agreed. You ready to take the reins back?
Well, I kind of think that you're doing such a great job with the Zoom meetings, Bob. It's fantastic.
It's because I spend about 5 hours a day on Zoom meetings.
I know, I've heard.
I can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Don't give him too many compliments. He's going to get well-headed.
Hey, I deserve it, man. I think this went very well. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Dan and IT. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Eastman.
Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, let's say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.